to the king, baby.
Heavy Metal Death Can is a retro-inspired survival horror game set on a submarine in an alternate history version of the late 70s Sweden. Trapped in the depths of the Norwegian Sea, you must fight for survival against the terrifying Sludge, which has possessed your crewmates and turned them into horrific zombies. Look for survivors and uncover the truth behind the madness. And man, is it crazy. It's crazy that this game was not on my radar at all prior to just happening to come across it on LureKit. And even though I didn't get a key directly from the developers, I am thankful to both LureKit and the developers for providing me with a key and also for creating this game. I also got the opportunity to join their Discord and connect with other like-minded people and fans of survival horror and other people in the community, as well as talk with the developer. This is a passion project for them, and it's a game heavily inspired by Resident Evil and even Silent Hill in some ways. It's a fixed camera angle, old school tank control style game. It has a lot of quality of life improvements, a lot of advanced movement additions, kind of similar to the way that they did the remastered HD version of the Resident Evil 1 remake. And I think that's nice, but you can also play it in a bit more slow, old school kind of movement way if you want. You know, you still have to kind of stop, aim, shoot, but it's all a very, very smooth experience. Ammo is scarce, healing items are scarce, save items are scarce, but I don't think any of it's ever too scarce if you're very, very thorough. And if you're avoiding enemies, ammo will probably never be a problem, especially if you get the Swedish tactical shovel, the Kloss, which you can get repair kits for, and you can fix it up, and you have 3 uses before you have to repair. You of course have a storage container, which goes around every save location, as well as the armory. You later unlock the armory after you save the person who ends up running it. They'll give you free items, but there's also things that they can give you through trade. So instead of using some form of currency, like Resident Evil 4, you actually have a barter system. So you give them 2 snus, and they give you a magazine of 9 pistol rounds. And snus is actually the healing item in the game. You use cassette tapes to save the game. It's all really cool. You get some bolt cutters later, which allow you to do a lot of backtracking and getting a lot more items. Of course, there's the searching around for this, searching around for that, going back here, going back there. You can do some things ahead of time by accident or on purpose, especially if you're doing speedruns later on. You can find different survivors throughout your journey through the submarine. This is a Cold War era submarine, but it also has this sort of Art Deco aesthetic at times, a retro kind of look that kind of feels like it did exist, but maybe it didn't really. You know, there's a drunk captain, there's some other workers, a scientist, there's a lab, some craziness going on, some really cool boss fights. They've released a few updates and released some quality of life things, like the guy who runs the armory will call you on these red phones around the place to remind you of free items, because they also offer free items, and that you can, you know, come back and restock. There's a cool system where you like kind of go in between like areas of the sub, and you can go to different locations. There's a lot of backtracking, like interconnected locations as you progress and you unlock them. They also do a great thing where there's like these locations that are completely barred off. They're not locked with need of a key. There are locations that need keys that you'll get later on, but there's a lot of locations that like the doorknobs broke, and later in the game when you have to come back to these locations, zombies will bust out of them, and then you can go get stuff out of them or whatever. And you have to choose whether you want to use ammo or use the Kloss. You have an SMG you can get, you got a pistol, a flare gun, and there's other items that you can get, of course. There's a bunch of cool puzzles. There's a Morse code puzzle, a puzzle with boats on this table. There's a valve puzzle. There's a lot of callbacks to classic Resident Evil. I think that when you go to a safe location, that the music sounds a lot more like Silent Hill than it does Resident Evil. I also think that the game having this overall kind of metal soundtrack for the title and for combat and stuff is so cool. And the soundtrack overall is great. The combat, the boss fights, it's so good. This is just a passion project for everyone involved. And it's like a 3 to 5 hour long, solid, refined experience. I ran into pretty much no issues. I can't really think of any issues that I had with the entirety of my experience. I really didn't have any. I could say, oh, the game can be brutally difficult at times. And sure, it can if you're not playing it smart. If you're not conserving your ammo, you're not avoiding zombies and trying to run around them or hit them with a claws. If you're getting grabbed, you can get grabbed like 3 times at full health and that's it. If you're not hoarding health items or using your saves in a very smart way, then yes, the game can be brutally difficult for anyone not accustomed to classic survival horror. This is the first game of this like survival horror resurgence that I've played. And that being the case, it's really good. And it's better than some classic survival horror games I've played. I like it a lot. It's definitely better than Resident Evil 0, I can tell you that much. That's a pretty low bar, so, and unlike games like Ground Zero, for instance, which I haven't played, mind you, but from what I've seen is a fairly long game. You're looking like 13 to 20 hours. It's just crazy. A lot of survival horror games, you're like 100%ing them at like 11 hours. I mean, you're pretty much doing everything in Heavy Metal Death Can at like max probably 5 to 6 hours, but overall, your experience is going to be 3 to 5 hours. And actually, it never overstays its welcome. It's a perfect length for a perfect little survival horror game. With some great twists, some cool story beats, tons of lore, collectibles, items to find, and just a world and an atmosphere to soak in. It's so much fun. The zombies are just terrifying and just creepy. They do the fun thing that they always do in games like this where you'll see these dead bodies in the background or somewhere in a level. You'll see them like 100 times, and then at a certain point you'll get there and they'll just like jump out at you, and now all of a sudden they're an enemy. And when they do stuff like that, I always find that so cool. So Heavy Metal Death Can is awesome. I think it's worth your money, worth your time. Go play it. They're continuing to update it. I don't know. Based on the way it ends, maybe there'll be DLC or maybe there's a sequel in the works. Overall, it's a fairly great experience. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. The boss fights are cool. The locations are cool. There's so much jam-packed into this little game. And it's the perfect length for anybody who has other things to do or just wants to play a little bit at a time without having to devote 20 hours to a game like this. Especially when it can be sort of difficult at times, especially if you're not accustomed to this sort of game. I would hate to have to like learn how to play a game like this and it'd be like a 20-hour experience. It would just drag. So I'm glad it's like this perfect length. So, man, Heavy Metal Death Can is gotta be up there as one of my favorite, I guess it really is my favorite old school survival horror resurgence game. It's, it's my number one in the renaissance of survival horror. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying out some others in the future, and I'm looking forward to what they do in the future, and I'll probably play through the game again. It'd be really cool if they add any sort of things as far as New Game Plus or anything like that. I mean, right now I would say there's not really much reason for replayability. Like I said, it's a fairly short game. It doesn't take a lot to do everything in the game, and there's not really any reason to necessarily replay it outside of just your enjoyment of the game. So maybe they'll add some things in future. We'll see. But I still think it's a pretty solid experience overall. So as always, I'd like to thank Midnight Medium, Osh, Melancholy Geek, and John David, as always, for the support, the love, and honestly, I just really appreciate you guys, and I'm glad that you keep supporting me and being there. It's been a while, but I'm glad we're getting back into the swing of things. As always, the Forge is calling, and I must answer. So I'll see you all when the next video has been forged. Good night, and good luck.